Welcome to Apex Magazine. Strange, surreal, shocking, beautiful.
Welcome to the Apex Magazine podcast. I'm your host and producer, Allison Grauer. Happy New Year, listeners, one and all. Welcome back to the pod. I hope your winter holiday season has been comfortable, safe, and happy, and I hope that you're all looking forward to many great things ahead in the new year of 2022. I am so pleased that you're here to listen today, friends. This is my very first episode as your podcast producer, although I have had the great honor of voicing some of the stories of past episodes of this podcast. I am thrilled and a little nervous to be stepping into the very, very significant shoes that previous podcast producer KT Brisky has left behind. This is a podcast that I have admired for a great deal of time, and I am very happy to be a part of it now. I hope I will make you all proud. I'd also like to take a moment before we dive in to ask, did you know that Apex Magazine has a Patreon? For as little as $2 a month, you will gain access to exclusive author interviews and writing workshops, as well as early access to our monthly microfiction themes. You can visit www.patreon.com/apexbookcompany to learn more. That's www.patreon.com/apexbookcompany. And now, let us turn our attention to this month's story, a tale of crime, punishment, and the siren call of a helium addiction. Apex Magazine proudly presents Episode 77, It Happened in Loontown, by Lavie Tidhar.
It Happened in Loontown by Lavie Tidhar. One.
Hold it right there, gas bag.
The red balloon turned. The beam of a searchlight from high above momentarily crisscrossed the dark alleyway, catching the smooth surface of his face and the scotch-tape scar on the left. "Oh, it's you," he said. 3 big balloons drifted menacingly along the alleyway towards him.
Where is it, gas bag?
"Listen, Flynn, I don't have it. We turned up for the job, but someone beat us to it. It was empty. The whole shipment was gone."
Where is it, Mordecai?
Mordecai bobbed up and down in the air. He floated back until he hit the wall. He looked up, but the 3 bigger balloons came drifting up and spread, blocking any possible escape route. "Listen, Flynn, you gotta believe me," he said, desperate now. "It went down like I said. You said it should be there. We did everything according to the plan. You can't hold me There was a flash of a flame being struck, and the big balloon called Flynn lit a cigarette. He took a long drag through his lip, and very slightly swelled. No, Mordecai said. "No, Flynn, no." Flynn exhaled the smoke and closed his lip. And then the glowing end of the cigarette came floating down the alleyway as the 3 goon balloons closed on their victim. "No!" The hot flame touched the delicate material of Mordecai's skin. There was a soft, wet explosion. Pieces of torn red rubber hit the wall and flopped to the ground. Flynn tossed the cigarette.
Come on, boys. Let's scram.
The 3 large balloons rose quietly into the air, drifting up until they were high above the city, pulled by the currents of the winds to find the unlucky fool who dare steal their shipment. 2. Night in the city. Somewhere in the distance, the pop, pop, pop sound of pellet guns as rival gangs settled old scores down on Faraday. Out on Hancock, the scarlet balloon models were on their full display as they bobbed up and down seductively, trying to entice punters. A police siren blared, and a voice on the radio came alive and said,
"Possible 187 on Ingram. Calling all units. Calling all units."
Muldoon here.
The gray-green balloon called Muldoon said,
Approaching.
Copy that, Lieutenant.
Night in the city. Night in his city. The city that never slept. He floated past the scarlet models, who rubbed seductively with an electric charge and made those scratching sounds that drove the punters crazy. A few of them called out to him, "Muldoon, Muldoon, it's been too long."
Not tonight, not tonight.
He said, feeling a familiar ache now. Remembered how his ex-wife used to say balloons were nothing but suppressed feelings. It's been a year since she died, snagged on a thorny branch that must have been, meant for him. Another unsolved homicide to add to the ever-growing tally. Night in this city, where loon life was cheap, where loon death is cheaper. Past Hancock, and down the narrow lanes where the hoppers hopped and the drifters drifted. Down at last to Ingram, finding it by the two bulls waiting in the alley entrance.
Muldoon,
He said.
what do we have here?
"Lieutenant," the bull on the right said. They were police bulls, big and mean, but it didn't make them stupid. "You should have a look." "It ain't pretty," the other one said. Muldoon left them there and drifted inside. Red patches of rubber. Red against the dirty wall in the black night. Even torn up like that, Muldoon could recognize him. Mordecai the Mouth. He must have busted him a half-dozen times. He was the best scoop in the business. He specialized in robbing other criminals' shipments. Muldoon guessed someone must have finally caught up with him.
Cigarette, half smoked,
He said. The bull who'd spoke up earlier drifted up. "Classic gang execution style," he said. "Popped him right out with a flame. It's a nasty way to go."
You know him?
"Mordecai? Who doesn't?"
Know what his line was?
The bull made a raspberry sound. "H," he said, same as it ever was.
Think you robbed the wrong guy?
The bull bobbed sideways, a shrug. "Damned if I know, Lieutenant."
Any known associates?
The other bull drifted up to them. "Busted him a couple of times at the Eddie and Bill Club," he said. "You could try there." "Half the drifters in Loontown hang there," the first bull said. "Every dirtbag in the city," the second one said.
I know the Eddie and Bill, Muldoon said. Thanks.
"No problem, Lieutenant."
Bag him and tag him, will you?
Muldoon said. "Yes, sir." Muldoon left them to it and floated up. The city spread all around him. Balloons danced in the sky, congregated round lamps, smoked, cursed, laughed, flirted. Loontown. He used to love it. Not anymore. Three. Circus balloons twisted themselves into knots on the main stage of the Eddie and Bill Club. Dancers rose and fell on gentle thermals, skirts twirling, hoppers hopping, silver foil flashing everywhere. "You can't come in." A bouncer hopped to block Muldoon. He was a big, solid ball of air.
Muldoon, homicide.
"Sorry, Lieutenant. Didn't recognize you there. It's been a while."
Is that you, Tony Bouncy Castle?
He would have smiled if balloons could smile. "You remember."
How's your sister?
"Much better now, Lieutenant. Thanks. Can I get you anything? Warm air, spray of water?"
Not tonight, Tony. I'm on the job.
"Who popped?"
Mordecai,
Muldoon said.
Morty the Mouth.
"That guy?"
Yeah.
"Word was that the Flynn gang was after him," Tony said.
Flynn? I thought that gas bag was on a 12 stretch out in Blimpsville.
"Got out early."
Pulling jobs again?
"That's the word."
H?
"Ain't it always, Lieutenant?"
H.
Damned H, Muldoon thought. Filled you up, lifted you high as you could go. It got you hopping good. It was better than anything. Better than that soft, sweet charge of static electricity rubbing skin to skin. Better than hot air. Better than a hot summer day at the fair. H was everything. And once you got a taste for it, you always wanted more.
Anything else you can tell?
Tony Bouncy Castle bounced as he thought. "There's a skirt named of Red. She often comes here. Thinks she was friendly with the Mouth. You might want to ask around."
I think I will. Thanks, Tony.
"Don't mention it, Lieutenant."
And say hi to your sister for me, will you?
"Will do." Muldoon left him there and drifted inside. Balloon trumpeters played a jazzy tune on the stage. Boppers bopped and hoppers hopped, and the crowd thickened around the bar, where shots of warm air were handed out to the revelers. Muldoon saw familiar faces: the crime beat reporter for the Loon Times, the mayor's deputy, and the police commissioner, whose ego was as inflated as he was. Everybody came to Eddie and Bill, from above and from below. He spotted her near the stage. She was hard to miss. She had the sort of curves that made a perfect teardrop. She was red like sunset over a forest fire. Muldoon couldn't take his gaze off her. She bopped gently up and down in time with the music. He drifted to her. "Hello, Red." She turned slowly, looked him up and down.
What do you want, gas bag?
I was hoping we could have a chat.
Who the hell are you?
Muldoon. I'm with the police.
So?
Somebody popped Mordecai the mouth.
Oh, Morty.
You knew him well?
We swapped air a few times, if you get my drift.
Know what he's into?
What wasn't he?
She drifted close to him then, her skin almost rubbing his, static electricity coursing between them. He felt the spark. The skirt was dangerous.
We can't talk here.
Then where?
My place. It's on Yost and Montgolfier.
When?
1 hour.
Thanks, Red.
Muldoon, was it? Be careful.
She pushed away from him. He stood alone at the bar, the trumpets playing on stage. He looked around him, saw some black and green dirt bags in the corner with all their attention apparently on him.
All right, then.
He made his way out, and they followed. "4. "Stay back," he said. He pulled out his police-issue long darner and aimed the sharp end at the dirtbags. They floated to surround him. "Police," he said. "We know who you are. Yeah. Muldoon of homicide. Yeah. What brings you here, Muldoon? You're kinda unwelcome at the Eddie and Bill."
You with the Flynn crew?
Muldoon said. The dirtbags laughed. "Flynn, that hopper's gonna pop." "Yeah." Muldoon paused, confused.
So who are you with? What do you want?
The largest dirtbag darted at him. Muldoon's long darner flashed, but the dirtbag ducked under, and then there were 2 more behind him. They were sneaky. A shove, and a sudden blow of air, and his long darner dropped from his mouth, and he was now unarmed. "Stay away from this, copper. Won't tell you again." Then they were on him. Heavy, nasty bodies, hitting him so hard he lost air. He would have curled into a ball had he not, in fact, been a ball. They pummeled him and he took it. There was nothing else he could do. "Stay out of Big's business." And with that parting shot, they were gone. Muldoon sagged in midair. Everything hurt. Big? He thought. After a while, he drifted down until he found Red's place on Yost and Montgolfier. "5.
You came. I wasn't sure that you would.
She floated up to him, that electric charge. He sagged a little.
You're hurt.
It's nothing.
You're losing air.
It was only a small puncture.
Here, let me.
Deftly, she put a plaster over the hole.
You should go to the hospital.
All they'll do is pump me full of H. I have a case to solve.
You cops are all the same.
You know cops?
Who doesn't?
You knew Mordecai.
He wasn't the smartest loon in town, but he was always honest for a crook.
So what happened to him, Red? Why'd he get popped?
I'm sure I don't know.
Who's Big?
She went still at that.
Big?
That's what I said.
Forget it, Muldoon. It's Loontown.
What aren't you telling me?
Mordecai was pulling another job. H shipment. He hijacked them coming into the city. Either he robbed the wrong guy or...
Or what?
Or somebody beat him to it.
She fell silent. Muldoon listened to the city. It was hot in Red's place, and the warm air pushed them both up. He had a feeling that she knew a lot more than she'd said. He tried to work it out. Mordecai went on a job for Flynn, but came back empty-handed, so Flynn popped him. That fit together neatly. So why did he feel something was missing?
Has there been a lot of H gone missing recently? He asked her.
How should I know?
You seem to know a lot.
She bobbed up and down and over to him. Her skin rubbed against his.
Charge.
Maybe. Yes. I know prices have gone up a lot in recent months. It's getting harder and harder to get it.
You use?
She was so close that their skin made that pinching, scratching sound of balloon against balloon.
Maybe. Sometimes. Gets you high. Does that bother you, Detective?
Muldoon, call me.
Then there were no more words between them. Just a frenzy of bobbing and scratching and all that static electricity drawing them together. So close it was a wonder, afterwards, that neither of them popped. Six. Flynn was floating in interrogation room number 1, tied up to a nail when Muldoon came in.
You got the wrong loon, copper. I ain't so sure about that, Flynn. You got nothing on me, Muldoon. I'm cleaner than a whistle. You smell of smoke and murder, gasbag. And if I had my way, you'd be headed straight for the electric fence. Look, Muldoon, we can cut a deal. Then tell me about Big.
Flynn went quiet. Muldoon could tell he was angry then.
Was that him then?
Flynn said.
Was that him what? It was. It must have been. I heard rumors, but I didn't believe him. I thought he died in that gas explosion on Lakehurst a couple of years back. He was big in the hydrogen then. Big mistake. Real money's in H. Same as it ever was. You're saying H is running low?
Muldoon said.
That one day it's going to run out for good. No more highs. No more party loons. Yeah. Well, that's where the profit margins be, copper. Besides, H is stable. Won't blow up like a Roman candle if you go too near an open flame. You get my drift? Is that what happened to this Big? I was the word back then.
Flynn stewed.
That inflatable pig bladder of a loon. So he came back to take over the H racket. Figures. He's always a greedy little bastard. Why'd they call him Big? He was a bouncy little guy, you know. It was ironic, like, know where I can find him? Listen, Muldoon. Him I'll give you for free.
Muldoon waited as Flynn thought. It took a while.
He used to have a place down by the docks, he said at last. If he's really back in town, he might have moved right back in. Big warehouse down on the waterfront on Charles. Thanks, Flynn. Listen, Muldoon. I won't get the needle, will I? I mean, a loon's gotta do what a loon's gotta do, you know? I'll put in a word,
Muldoon said. He left him there, tied to the nail. Just another lost balloon in the big city. 7. Night on the waterfront. The stars twinkled in the gray, churning water. A strong wind. The police balloons fought the gale and inched their way forward with the anchoring nails so that they didn't drift out to sea. More than a few loons were lost like this on bad weather days. Muldoon watched the warehouse.
How do you want to play this, Lieutenant? We go in. Anything moves, you pop it. All right, Lieutenant.
The police balloons drifted closer to the doors. They set a charge against them. Hydrogen foils set by the bomb squad. It went off. Fire and a burst of hot wind that lifted them all up and would have tossed them to the sky had it not been for the hooks. The doors blew open. Muldoon and the squad rushed in. And to the deadly pop, pop, pop of pelt machine guns. Muldoon screamed, "It's an ambush!" A bull ahead of him got it right in the center and burst open in front of him. Bits of rubber fell to the floor. Muldoon began firing, blindly. It did no good. The place was dark and he couldn't see. He could hear them popping all around him, just like in the war. He was only a boy balloon then, when they sent him to fight overseas. Their enemy were sky lanterns. They showed no mercy. He still had nightmares sometimes. Now he was having that nightmare all over again. In moments it was over. Harsh light flooded into the warehouse.
Drop your weapon, Lieutenant.
Muldoon let it fall. It was no use anyway. He saw his fellow comrades on the floor, like so much discarded rubbish. How quickly a thinking, living balloon could be reduced to nothing, he thought. A loon that loved and felt and hurt and knew the joys of flying in the wind, reduced to trash in an instant. He stared. Big might have been small once. A small, bouncy castle sort of fellow. Harmless looking, even charming. He was no longer small. The bouncy castle was huge. Even as Muldoon watched, Big grew bigger. Pipes led into Big's body, and he shivered and shook as he expanded and floated. "My God," Muldoon said, "you're full of H."
I warned you not to get involved, Lieutenant. Why didn't you listen? Now it's too late.
Big shook and shivered as he grew. Soon he'd be bigger than the warehouse. Soon he'd be bigger than the world. Then Muldoon saw her. Red. She floated above Big's enormous belly. She was so very beautiful, he thought. She turned and floated into Big's big lap. "You."
Yes.
"But why?" Then he thought, H, of course.
Hopper's gotta hop.
Big's dirt bags surrounded him then. "What are you going to do with me?" Muldoon said.
Do with you? Nothing. I wanted you to watch, Lieutenant. I wanted you to bear witness. I wanted you to see me as I transform.
He grew and grew. Muldoon could only watch in horror. No wonder H was running scarce across the city. It was all here, fed into this giant, monstrous thing. Big's tough, plastic skin rubbed against the walls. The pressure was too much. Muldoon could feel the walls crumbling and the roof cave in. He ducked and pulled just in time. A piece of falling masonry caught one of the dirt bags and flattened him with a wet pop. Muldoon grabbed hold of the gun. He dove for escape. The dirt bags had no thought to follow him. Big broke the walls and rose into the sky, the cables pumping H trailing below him. Muldoon made it out, but some of the dirt bags did not. Muldoon hovered, anchored to the quayside. He watched the giant bouncy castle balloon move further and further as it rose. At last the cables stretched to the breaking point. They tore away from the enormous blobby mass and tumbled to the ground, still spraying precious helium as they fell. Big rose and rose, and the little red balloon that was red floated beside him. And as he rose, Big laughed, a big, belly-shaking, balloon-bursting laugh that echoed all over Loontown and woke up babies from their sleep and drove the Scarlets crazy, and skirts and hoppers and foils and drifters all across the city raised their smooth sides to the sky and watched. Muldoon let the gun drop. There was nothing to shoot at. He thought about his ex-wife and how he still missed her every day. There was something beautiful about the way Big rose. He tried to right himself high above the city, but he was too big and too pumped full of H, and the winds and the thermals pulled him up higher and higher. His laughter turned into a high-pitched, shrill cry of alarm. Then it, too, was gone, and he rose beyond the clouds and vanished from sight. All across the city, loons watched, in the high places and the low dives. They'd seen something amazing. One of their own made somehow more than a balloon, for he had torn off from his mortal coil, and earth and sky and risen. How high will he go, Muldoon wondered. Perhaps all the way up. Perhaps to the moon. If so, he'd be the first balloon to ever make it there. He thought about Red, and how high she could go, and whether where Big was going, anyone could really follow. He felt a strange sort of hollowness then, and also a kind of relief that it was over. Sirens blared in the distance. Soon the first responders will arrive at the scene, and it would be time to bag and tag the dead and round up the surviving dirtbags to stand trial. Beyond the docks, the city soon turned back to normal. Night in the city. Somewhere in the distance, the pop, pop, pop sound of pellet guns as rival gangs settled old scores down in Faraday. Out on Hancock, the Scarlet Balloon models were on full display. The blare of sirens came close. Muldoon sagged, but a part of him was smiling, for the first time in a very long time. Loontown. He used to love it. He thought now, maybe, he still did.
Lavie Tidhar is the author of Osama, The Violent Century, A Man Lies Dreaming, Central Station, Unholy Land, and By Force Alone. His latest novels are The Hood and The Escapement. His awards include the World Fantasy Award, the British Fantasy Award, the John W. Campbell Award, the Neukom Prize, and the Jerwood Fiction Uncovered Prize. You can find out more at lavietidhar.wordpress.com. Drew Merzieski is a writer, actor, and overall creative based in Chicago. When he is not working on homebrew D&D campaigns and his podcast, Skyjack's Courier's Call, he is often found collaborating on projects with and cooking food for his wife, Allie. That's me. Drew loves creating stories, playing games, and spreading hope in a brighter future. He's on Twitter @WorldsToForge. Sounds used in this episode are from Soundstripe.com. Music in this episode includes Onward Home by Ryan Saranic and Silver Screen by The Night Train, both also from Soundstripe.com. The theme music for the Apex Magazine podcast was written and produced by Alex White. If you enjoyed this podcast, visit apex-magazine.com for more strange and beautiful fiction by Lavie Tidhar and many others. Our genre magazine also includes interviews with authors and artists, fiction reviews, and nonfiction by some of the leading voices in the business. Subscriptions are $24 annually. That's apex-magazine.com. That's all for now. Thank you for listening.